During a seemingly ordinary family cruise, 7-year-old Oscar mysteriously disappeared without a trace from the ship. His distraught parents searched tirelessly, but hope was fading. Then, out of nowhere, Oscar reappeared at his parents' home, leaving them in disbelief and struggling with unanswered questions. As they tried to comprehend the unimaginable, one question burned in their minds. Where had Oscar been all these years, and what had happened during his mysterious disappearance? Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new story. Margot and her husband, Evan, were just cleaning up after dinner one evening when suddenly the doorbell rang. She raised an eyebrow as she glanced at the clock and asked, "We aren't expecting anyone, are we?" Evan shook his head. He seemed just as surprised as she was. He expected it to be a neighbor or a delivery man dropping off a package. But it was neither. "Well, who is it? Why won't you open the door?" Margot asked, but her husband stood completely frozen. "Evan?" she asked, but he didn't react. Margot sighed, confused by her husband's sudden, strange behavior, and she walked past him and grabbed the doorknob. Not having any idea who was standing on the other side, she pulled open the door, saying, "I'm sorry, but it's late. How can we help?" But as soon as she saw who it was, she fell silent. She turned pale, and her mouth fell open as she stared at the teenage boy who was standing on their doorstep. Evan still stood frozen, unable to react at all. The boy had been looking down at his feet the entire time, but upon hearing his name, he finally lifted his gaze and looked his mother in the eyes. It was as if Margot only at this moment realized that their son had returned. "He was alive!" Margot exclaimed. "Oscar!" And she flung her arms around him. Tears were streaming down her face, and she could not stop looking at her sweet Oscar. He had been only 7 years old when he had disappeared, and now, nearly 10 years later, he looked completely different. He had changed so much, but at the same time, he still looked the same. Margot simply couldn't believe that he had just shown up at their doorstep like that. "Where have you been? Are you okay?" he asked Oscar after a long hug, but the boy did not reply. He only looked at his parents with tearful eyes, and he pulled them in for another hug. Margot and Evan understood that he was not ready to talk yet, so they just brought him inside and sat him down on the couch. Margot sat down next to him and held his hands in hers while Evan went to the kitchen to get him a glass of water. "It's okay, honey. Take your time," they told him. His parents wanted to know everything about the last years, how he had disappeared, where he had been, how he survived, everything. They had searched for him for a long, long time, but in the end, the police had told them to give up. They hadn't found a single lead, and there was no place left to look. They had been told to assume the worst, and now here he was. Margot and Evan still couldn't believe that he had really returned. Margot and Evan wasted no time diving into preparations for Oscar's homecoming. They sifted through his old room, finding toys and clothes that no longer fit the teenager he had become. Together, they set out on a mission to the local mall, eager to fill his closet with clothes that reflected his new age and the time that had passed. Transforming Oscar's room became their next project. They worked tirelessly, assembling furniture that matched Oscar's new age, ensuring every piece from the bed to the bookshelf was just right. Attention then turned to the kitchen, where Margot and Evan stocked up on ingredients for Oscar's favorite meals and a variety of snacks. They wanted to ensure that the pantry was filled with foods that would remind him of home and maybe even bring a smile to his face. Cooking together became a nightly ritual. As they tried to guess what he might like now, each dish a hopeful gesture of rekindling their family bond. With the house now ready for Oscar, Margot and Evan found themselves stepping back to appreciate their efforts. They hoped that these changes would not only make Oscar comfortable, but also help mend the years lost between them. As they looked around Oscar's new room, they imagined the moments and memories that would soon fill these spaces, a silent promise to rebuild the life they once shared. Right after Oscar's return, Margot and Evan contacted the police to make his reappearance official, hoping to piece together his disappearance. They shared all they knew. marking the start of a journey for answers. An officer they knew visited to speak with Oscar, who remained silent. The officer was patient, understanding the difficulty of his situation. After the police left, Evan searched online for advice, while Margot connected with support groups. Determined to ease Oscar's transition, they gathered resources to help him adjust. Margot and Evan became protective, ensuring Oscar felt secure at home, away from intrusive questions. They reassured him he was safe, emphasizing their unwavering support. Despite the lack of information from the police, they remained patient, encouraging Oscar to open up at his own pace. Their home became a space filled with love and understanding. When Oscar finally spoke, it was in Spanish, a language he had never learned at home. Instead of being discouraged, Margot and Evan saw this as an opportunity to reconnect. To bridge the language gap, they downloaded a translator app, making daily interactions smoother. This tool became essential in helping them understand Oscar's thoughts and emotions. Determined to communicate better, they started learning Spanish, practicing daily, and even hiring a tutor. Their efforts showed their dedication to reconnecting with Oscar. Margot and Evan integrated Spanish culture into their home, cooking traditional meals and celebrating holidays. This effort made Oscar feel more at ease and embraced for who he had become. As they adapted, Oscar saw their commitment, strengthening their bond. Their willingness to learn his language reassured him that he was loved and accepted. Over time, the translator app facilitated deeper conversations, unlocking glimpses of Oscar's journey. Laughter and shared experiences through the app brought warmth back into the family. Oscar gradually regained interest in English, while Margot and Evan continued Spanish lessons, making their home a bilingual, culturally rich environment. Wanting better communication, they contacted the police to request a Spanish-speaking translator. When the translator arrived, a new door opened for understanding Oscar's past. With the translator's help, Oscar shared his experiences, offering glimpses into his missing years. His parents listened intently, piecing together his story, one filled with both joy and sorrow. The translator became more than just a linguistic aid. They helped Margot and Evan understand the emotional and cultural nuances of Oscar's experience. This connection enriched their family life, as they learned about the traditions, music, and stories that had shaped him. As Oscar shared both joyful and painful memories, his parents and the translator navigated these conversations with sensitivity. They ensured he felt safe, supported, and never pressured to reveal more than he was ready for. To strengthen their bond, the family embraced elements of Oscar's past, watching Spanish films, cooking dishes from his time abroad, and even attempting traditional dances. These activities reinforced his sense of belonging, proving he was truly home. With growing media interest, Margot and Evan fiercely protected Oscar's privacy. They declined interviews and kept their home a sanctuary, ensuring he was shielded from the public eye while maintaining a sense of normalcy. The officer who had originally searched for Oscar returned, now reviewing the case with fresh determination. He collaborated with Margot and Evan to gently piece together Oscar's fragmented memories without pressuring him. Late-night meetings with investigators became routine, as Margot and Evan carefully shared what Oscar had revealed. They balanced cooperation with the police while ensuring their son's emotional well-being remained the priority. As public curiosity grew, Margot and Evan managed the delicate balance between aiding the investigation and preserving Oscar's peace. They controlled what was shared, keeping their home a refuge while focusing on his recovery. The case intensified as Margot and Evan meticulously examined old photos, emails, and any potential leads. Their living room transformed into a command center, covered in maps and notes as they worked tirelessly alongside detectives. Determined to protect Oscar from distressing details, his parents ensured discussions about the case happened only in private. Therapy sessions and bedtime became designated times for receiving updates, keeping his world stable and positive. Oscar began therapy, a vital step in his recovery. Margot and Evan ensured he had support before and after sessions. They also joined family therapy, learning strategies to help Oscar feel understood. Through therapy, Oscar shared memories of people who had helped him, like Mama Elena. His parents encouraged these reflections, recognizing the strength he had developed despite his hardships. The investigation took a turn when officers found evidence linking Oscar's disappearance to a trafficking ring. A raid confirmed the horrifying reality. Oscar had been kidnapped. Margot and Evan found themselves navigating a complex legal system. They met with lawyers, attended hearings, and sought justice not only for Oscar, but for other victims. Their fight gained public support, with advocacy groups and community members rallying behind them. In court, Margot and Evan testified with courage, determined to hold those responsible accountable. While shielding Oscar from painful details, they ensured he continued therapy and maintained a sense of normalcy at home. Family therapy sessions helped them process the trauma together, strengthening their bond. The trial's conclusion brought a mix of emotions: relief, justice, and a deepened commitment to healing. Margot and Evan turned their pain into action, advocating for child protection laws and raising awareness about trafficking. As a family, they planned a trip, symbolizing a fresh start, moving forward with resilience and hope.